Hi, Priya. I see you. God damn, my eyes are huge. Look at that. Look at that. They're massive.
They
Oh, fuck,
are.
we're recording again.
Yeah.
How many outtakes are we gonna have? Like a lot, right?
I should start collecting them. I should have a blooper reel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Booth. I'm Jade, and with me, as always, is my award-winning producer, Heather.
And on this channel, we talk about wild stories from Comic-Con vendors. Because Jade is a Comic-Con vendor, she has her own booth, she has her own product that she sells, and she's been all over the country, and we'll have a list of the ones that she has coming up. But today we're talking about, actually not about conventions, because running a business as a Comic-Con vendor comes with a lot of different things that you need to do as well. And this is something that Jade has found is helpful, and also it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And these are community events. We've talked about nonprofit events. This is slightly different. And she just did one in what, the last couple of months that you want to talk about?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So take it away.
I was at a speaker training event, and I've talked about speaking a lot on this channel, and it's not like it's a natural thing for me. Saying this as somebody who's podcasting actively. I actually do a lot of training, a lot of reading, and I do work with coaches that will make me a better speaker, that will help me become a better speaker. And one of the events I was at, there was a person there. His name was Tristan, and he
Shout
was
out
there
Tristan.
speaking. I know. Hey, Tristan. He was there speaking about involving the blind in more opportunities for employment. And his talk was excellent. He had his dog there, Rocky. Everyone loves Rocky. Hey, what's up, Rocky? I love you. I would sing to Rocky. I would sing him the I Love Rocky Road, the Weird Al song. And Rocky would roll over and do the belly pet thing. Um, but that's how I met Tristan. And the topic I was sharing during the interview process of the event itself was about the stencil and how I came up with the stencil. And when I was talking to Tristan afterwards, he said, that's so cool. I've always wanted to do something like origami, but, I've not been able to because Tristan is blind and he was blind from birth. And so I said, well, we can do it together. Do you want to do that? And he's just like, oh, sure. Cause he's always open to, whatever. He's always open to just experiencing things. And I had my koi fish and we made it together. And I allowed him to do as much as he could without help. And then when he needed help, I was like, I took his hands and moved his hands in the direction that he needed to go. And I helped him tape down because the tape thing that I had was like one of those roller ones and it was having problems. And I was like, "Big rule." And
Oh no.
frustration, whatever it should feel like first. And then he made his own. And then I know, and I told him what color it was, and what he was making and what each part of the fish was. And it was a very special interaction for me because I had never worked with somebody who was visually impaired. And somebody who has been blind from birth who has never had the opportunity to make origami because that was not ever a possibility for him. And so at the end of it, we made it together and I was so excited. And somebody was recording me from behind. I had no idea they were there, which thank God I didn't because I get all like twitchy and stuff in front of the camera. Um, we worked on that together and he was so happy and he was showing it off to people. And at the dinner that night, I wasn't able to attend. He was talking about the experience with other people and what it was like. And it really meant a lot to me that he took such a great experience away with him. And I have videos of this if you want to watch it on social media. I'm a bit embarrassed in a way because I don't ever want to use somebody to promote myself or my business.
Hmm.
But what I've been told is that it meant a lot to him and can have an impact to others that I should post it. So that's why it's posted. Um, which is difficult for me. Those of you that know me, I really don't like to brag or talk about myself a lot because it's just uncomfortable. But what had happened is that somebody had heard about it within one of the events that this particular community puts on. So there is a community of people who are in the LGBTQIA community that have various amounts of visual blindness. And some people have been blind since birth, and some people have become blind over time, and some were just, had different levels of blindness throughout their lives. And I contacted them. Tristan had said something to them. They reached out to me. I contacted them back and said, hey, I could probably do a workshop or something for you guys. So you can do something. We can make My butterflies are one of the easiest ones I have. We can make a rainbow out of butterflies, and that could be a lot of fun." And they said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Our budget's really, really tight." They were adding me in the last month before they were going to do the event itself. And as anyone who runs events knows that you run out of money real fast, especially right before you're going to launch the event.
Mhm.
And I was like, if I can get myself out there, can you guys give me a place to stay, and feed me? I was like, "That's all I'm gonna ask for." I'm like, "I'll waive my fees, I'll waive my speaker stuff, I'll bring my own supplies, you guys don't have to pay for any of that, just give me somewhere to sleep and give me food." I felt like that was pretty fair. And what I did in order to make that happen, because I didn't have the cash flow to fly myself out there and to buy the amount of supplies that I needed to make this happen. So I contacted my group of people that I knew and the people that had attended that event that had seen and experienced Tristan making that thing and said, "Hey, I'm going to do basically a charity fund for this to pay for my ability to fly out there, get an Uber, get home, and get supplies." So in no way was this, I need enough money to pay myself as well. I hate it when charity people do that. Like, well, I have to pay me first. I'm like, that money could have been you're donating your time, right? You're not just
Yeah.
paying yourself to do something. It's my own personal feeling on it. If that's what you do, I don't mean to be offensive. Um, I just feel with charity, you should be donating your time and your skill and not paying yourself back. So I was actually able through, I believe it was 5 different donors, that were very, very generous to help me hit that number within an hour of me asking. Um, Within an hour of me reaching out, that number was hit. And so I immediately called, the people back with this community and said, "Hey, I can get there. I can get there and I can be there. Give me a time slot." And they're like, "You're kidding." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I have very, very generous people within my circles. They believe in the cause and they want to bring origami to the blind. And that's just what we're gonna do." And so they're like, "Great, can you do these days?" And we have this, it was like it wasn't like a penthouse, but it was one of those like en suites where it had like a bedroom and then it had like a couch situation and then it
Yeah.
had like a living room. And so I slept on the couch, which was super fun. I actually had a great time. It was like a permanent slumber party with a bunch of people I didn't know. But they were very nice to me, and I didn't have to worry about wearing and making sure I had pants on and stuff because they were all completely, totally
Oh,
blind. So
that's
if I
true.
wasn't presentable, it was great. I didn't care. And they would call to me. They'd be like, "Jade, are you here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in here." They're like, "Okay, cool. We're coming in." And I was like, "Okay." And they're like, "You don't have to worry about being super decent. We're blind and we're gay." And I was like, "Okay." They were really fun, and they were very sweet to me. So, we had the event, and what had originally been negotiated was that they were going to give me 2 classroom times and a helper per table, and they had these, like, circular tables with 8 people at them, and I had 6 tables or 7, I can't remember, it was quite a few. None of the volunteers showed up to help me, and when I say volunteers, we're talking about people that are sighted that were there at the event to help this entire group. I mean, there were so many people from this culture that were there, and there were dogs everywhere, everywhere. And I was so like happy,
Oh.
but I mean, I'm allergic to animals, and some of you may know that, some of you may not, even though I have a dog. And all the dogs are there, they're working and they're having a great time, and the people there, it was such an amazing thing where like they weren't being stared at, like, and they could, be within their own community. And I learned how to lead people. I didn't know that was a skill. Um,
Mm.
but these people were more than kind to say, like, "Hey, can you help me find this room?" Because it was a massive fucking hotel. And you're having people navigate where there isn't braille on all the signs. Some of them can't read braille. The website was wrong with what was in what room and when, and people were just lost. And so, especially at the restaurant, they had this beautiful restaurant, but you couldn't find your friend. And the restaurant people had no idea, where to send people. So I had somebody say, "Hey, can you help me find the restaurant?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And they just grab your elbow and you lead them. And here's a stereotype that I want to make sure is very clear. Not every person who is blind has a dog, and not
Yeah.
every person who is blind uses a cane. And again, there's different variations of blindness. So some people can still quote unquote see. They can see shapes or colors or have some depth perception, but that doesn't mean they can actually see. And so when somebody asks for help, you're just like, yeah, sure, I got you. And we're walking in, and I was like, okay, who are we looking for? And they just started calling the person's name just in the middle of a restaurant, which you would never expect. I was
Yeah.
like, do you know what they're wearing? Do you know? I didn't want to be like, do you know what they look like? Because that's insensitive
Yeah.
as fuck.
Yeah.
And they'll say things like, oh, well, they have a golden retriever and they are a man that I think they are a brunette, and their name is Joe. Or I believe it actually was Joe in this particular case. And so I'm looking, and there's dogs everywhere. So I'm looking for a golden retriever out of like 30 fucking dogs that are half of
Yeah.
them are golden retrievers. I was looking for a taller man who said he was on the right side of the restaurant with dark hair. And so we're just wandering through, and I'm like, Joe, is there Joe here? Joe. And we're calling, and the guy's like, I'm Joe. And he raised his hand. And I was like, oh, I found Joe. I hope this is the right Joe. Cause there could be lots of Joes.
Joe's pretty common
And
name.
so they start talking, they sit down, they're like, thank you so much for leading me to the table. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I led so many people to elevators and to bathrooms and they had a big conference like stage area and helping them to
Mhm.
their chairs and stuff. And I had never done this before. And I felt so unprepared just in
Mm.
general, because I've never interacted with that community to that extent. I mean, of course, have I talked to people that are visually impaired? Of course. Have I, led anybody before? No, I had no idea what I was doing. Um, and the dogs did most of the work, which was very helpful. They just said, hey, can you just walk in front of my dog? I'll tell the dog to follow. And I was like, I'm sorry,
Okay.
what? Sure, I can do that. And then they would say, like some of them have really cute names like Mickey. Mickey was one that was really cute. They're like, hey, Mickey,
Oh.
follow. And the dog just knew to follow me. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, that's easy. Great. So when I did my class, I had no helpers. And instead of two classes, they put it all in one. So I had everybody and literally their dog. So I had to run to each table to help in between each instruction. And I've taught like people how to do things quite a bit. I was a figure skating instructor, a martial arts instructor, a dance instructor for most of my life, at least since I was like 11. I had been teaching. So I wasn't too worried about that. And as I was describing what was going on, I could see what was working and what wasn't, and what instruction I was giving was or wasn't helping. And when you learn how to teach, one of the things that you need to be good at, just in general, is being able to describe the same thing three different ways,
Mhm.
at least three different ways. And within this community, there were things that I needed to say. The other thing I didn't notice until it was too late was that several of them were left handed. So my instructions didn't make sense
Oh.
because I was telling them to do it from a right handed person's perspective. And so I figured out, that's how I need to describe this. And I had brought the butterflies on different textured paper of each color. So I was able to introduce each of them to the colors. So I had a red butterfly that had hearts on it that were embossed. And I was like, okay, here's red. And we're going to make our butterfly and just kind of start things out. And I had so many people say to me, thank you so much for telling us what color it was. They're like, even though
Mhm.
I've never experienced color, even though I don't, know what that looks like, most people just hand us something. They don't tell us what our choices are. They don't tell us what colors are. And they're like, color is not just for us, it's for the people around us. And so that's something I want everyone to be very aware of within this community is do not treat them any different, because you'll
Yeah.
be surprised that some of them could see at one point and know what color red is, or whatever they're buying from you may not be for them. It might be
Yeah.
for someone else. Do you remember the guy from Santa Fe who had the magic
Albuquerque?
shop?
Oh.
Yes, yes, the Albuquerque
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
He was so much fun, and he was buying stuff from our booth for someone else. And we
Yeah.
were telling him what colors things were, and he's like, "Yeah, I want the pink one for sure. Natalie's favorite color is pink."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and I remember the person next to us is like, "Why are you telling him what color it is? He's blind." I'm like, "'Cause it wasn't fucking for him, and I didn't know who it was for." But
And
I have
also,
things, and
why does that matter?
it shouldn't have mattered. It shouldn't have mattered. But so that's something to be aware of within the community, and to, of course, like we always say, be respectful. So it was the first time I was teaching a large group how to make my stencils into the origami things. And I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes that I never thought of. And there were things and challenges that came up that I would have never foreseen or planned for. And they said to me, "This is how our lives are all the time. This is just what it's like to be us. You have experienced it, what we experience every day."
Yeah.
And that was very humbling to me. And evidently, people from my class, what I was told was everyone loved it. Not everyone could attend, which in a way was good and bad because there was only one of me when I was supposed to have fucking helpers. Which, by the way, if you sign up to be a helper, fucking show up or else don't sign up.
Yeah.
Don't offer to help because I could have made very different plans had I known I didn't have help. Um, and I guess they were taking it to like dinner and breakfast and showing each other like what they got to make and what it was like and the experience. And so the day that I left, they asked me if I would come back next year. I said,
Oh.
"Yeah, I would love to come back next year." They're like, "And we're gonna put you in the budget, and we're going to make sure that you can get here. We want you on podcasts and blah, 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 blah." All of this, aside from the experience itself of what I got to feel and what I got to bring to them and the impact that made for them, was that I can now bring it to more people and I have more time to do fundraising. I have more time to plan. I have more time to get helpers and bring people, and know that I need to bring people. By the way, Heather, clear your schedule to come help me with this stuff. So, and that I was invited back was a huge compliment, because
Yeah.
I felt like I failed them. I have never felt that before as an instructor. I've always been able to get every single person in my class to understand and every single person in my class to be successful. I had one person that didn't in my class, and it was mortifying. I've never failed before. And so that was also a very humbling experience. But they were very nice to me. They didn't think I failed. And I had so many of them asking to buy my stencils, to where's my website? Did I bring product with me? And I brought some as like examples, but I didn't have like a kit. And they're like, "Well, we'll buy what you have." And I mean, it wasn't to do that to make money. It was to do that to bring it to them. And so what I did was with those the funds, quote unquote, that I had received from them, I put aside to come back next year in
Mhm.
2024 to do this again so that we're able to recycle the experience and put the money towards helping them again. So when people ask, "Well, how did you get here?" I heard we were out of money. I said I had very kind, supportive, um, charitable donations, people within my sphere and who believed in what we were doing. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, those people are so nice." And I believe all of them except for one specifically requested to not be named, not to be mentioned. Um, and I honored that. I said, there were 5 people that were very, very generous that helped us get here. And when you
Yeah.
have opportunities like this, I said yes without having a plan. I don't recommend that, but I believed in it. So I said yes, and then I came up with a way to make it happen. And there are people around you that want you to succeed. There are people
Yeah.
around you that really want you to make the impact and the difference that you can. And it was a hour and a half class. It was just me, and it was like maybe I think 30 people, 40 people. But I got to bring something to those people that was very special to them and meant a lot to them because they had never done origami before. They'd never had anybody take the time and patience to help them do it.
Yeah.
And they were so happy with the experience. And I've learned so much of what I'm not going to do wrong this next year. Um, but not being afraid to say yes to experiences like that, that's going to make a huge difference for yourself and the people around you.
Well, and I love that, and I love that this kind of event, this experience, it led you to, see even your own product in a completely new way too. You
Yeah.
know, I I didn't really think about, the fact that people that have vision issues are would have a really hard time doing origami, but with people actually willing to help them figure it out and everything, that they could possibly do that. I say that your stencilgami things are fantastic because I suck at origami, but that's just because I'm terrible at it, you know, not because I can't see it. So like the fact that
You're not
you can have
terrible.
this, eh, I'm not good. I'm no good, but the stencilgami, I can actually do it because I'm like,
I'm
this
glad.
is simple. This is something that makes sense to me. But that you can bring it to, a completely different community of people that might not have thought about before, that, oh, this could actually be really helpful for some things. So I think that's really special.
And I'd like to reinforce that Tristan's topic of hiring the blind is
Mm,
very important. As he said, there's so much the blind can do. There's very few things that they can't do, especially with the technology and things we have access to nowadays. And that they should not be treated any different. And what they do lack, they make up in so many other ways. So, if you're a company that is looking to hire other types of employees, I would highly suggest working with the blind. In my experience, um, outside of the crafting world and things like that, what they were able to do was amazing. And I did not notice with a lot of people that there was any difference. Outside of the like, well, what color is that? Like, oh, that's right, you can't see it. One of the things that kept happening to me is I'd ask to see something on their phone and they're like, hold on, I gotta turn the screen back on. And I
yeah,
was like,
that makes sense.
what? And they put their hand over the screen and it would read, and almost all of them had an earpiece in that if
Hmm.
they did this, it would read what the text messages said and things like that. They use voice to text like crazy. And I was like, "What's the schedule look like?" They're like, "Hold on." And they read it. They're like, "Oh, it's this, this, and this." And they're like, "Well, wait, what time is your thing again?" And so they're like, "Hold on, let me turn on the screen so you can see. What do you see?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't read that." Because it was so small and it was so dim. And I was like, I don't know how to use a fucking iPhone. Like holding an iPhone, so I didn't know how to use it. So it was its own experience, but it was so cool. So if you want to get involved, if you want to donate to their cause, at the very least, if you have the ability to hire somebody within the blind community, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of the story today and joining me with that journey. And a special thank you to Nerdy Girl Podcasts to support this concept and to fund this event.